Sushruta for NEET is now available on the Google Play Store. Try it out for free.
Hello, students. So our last class, we have seen balancing redox reactions from the oxidation number method. Now, the one thing that we have seen also that there is another method that is available to us, applying which we can also balance a redox reaction. Why balancing redox reactions? We need certain rules, certain laws. This is because balancing redox reactions is not as trivial or not as easy as balancing other chemical reactions which do not involve the presence, we do not involve ions or the charges or something like this. Here we add certain charges, certain ions. So this reaction should also be balanced in terms of charges, and not only it should also be balanced in terms of number of atoms. It should also be balanced in terms of number of electrons gained or accepted during the course of reaction, this redox process. So for that, to take care of everything, people have devised certain rules, and these two rules that are most famous, one we have already uh, studied, I have discussed it in our last class. So today I'm going to discuss the another method, that is half reaction method. Half reaction method, as I described last time, that you first, what you do, you find out a redox reaction. Redox reaction, finding out redox reaction means you have to recognize which species is getting oxidized and which one is getting reduced. Once you recognize which one is getting reduced, which one is getting oxidized, the entire thing is what the redox reaction that is given to you. And based on that recognition, which is this one is getting oxidized to this species, and this particular species is getting reduced to this particular species during the reaction, then you can divide these two, this entire reaction based on your understanding of oxidation and reduction into two halves. So then you just balance each half separately, and finally add these two reactions, and finally adding up whatever is common in both right hand side and left hand side, you can cancel them out, and the rest of thing that is left over is your balanced redox reaction. So the rules that we usually follow, to balance redox reactions by this half reaction method is something is stated here. So write the unbalanced equation for the reaction in ionic form. So you write the entire reaction in ionic form first, and then what you do, the write the two half reactions representing the redox processes. And so what you do, then you recognize which species, which is the reduction half, on which species is getting reduced to which species, what species, or then which species is getting oxidized to which species. And then you recognize them, separate out them into different equations. That is what we call two half reactions representing the redox process. And then what we do, the balance all elements in the third step, balance all elements except oxygen and hydrogen. So what do? We balance except oxygen and hydrogen. At this step, we won't care about what is whether oxygen and hydrogen atoms are balanced or not. Why? Because usually redox reactions that we look into, they happen in aqueous medium, and that balancing hydrogen and oxygen that we take, we do with the addition of either H plus ions and water molecule, or OH minus ion and water molecules. And that thing we do in a separate step. So what we do in third step, we balance all the atoms except oxygen and hydrogen. So balancing all atoms is making their numbers equal in left hand side and to the right hand side. Then balance oxygen atom by adding water molecule. Then the fourth step, we balance oxygen atoms, and that how we balance? We balance it by adding water molecules. So how do we do that? Then if you find out, suppose in certain part, maybe suppose left hand side of the reaction, there is excess of 5 oxygen atoms. So what you do, you add 5 water molecules to the left hand side. If the opposite is happening, some extra oxygen is there on the left hand side, then you will add same number, whatever the extra number of oxygen atoms are there on the left hand side, same number of water molecules you will add to the right hand side to balance oxygen atoms. Now, as soon as you do that, what you do, you also add with water molecules certain hydrogen atoms. So this may or may not balance the number of hydrogen atoms. So next time what we do, we balance hydrogen atoms by adding H plus ions. H plus ions if reaction is happening in acidic solution, and if the reaction is happening in basic solution, we take certain other steps that I'll describe later on here. So suppose this reaction is happening in acidic medium. So at step number 5, what we do to balance hydrogen atoms, we add H plus ions. And how many H plus ions we'll add? According it will that we will find based on how much hydrogen is excess on the hydrogen atoms are in excess in the other side of reaction. Then we do what balance charge by adding electrons. Then we look at the net charges on the left hand side and net charges on the right hand side, and based on that what we decide what is the total difference in the charge, and whichever side is the anionic charge is less, or maybe the cationic charge is more. Accordingly, based on that number, we add electrons here, number of electrons to balance charges. In the previous method, when we looked at what we did, we balance the charge by adding H plus and OH minus ions, depending on which medium the reaction is happening. Here we balance this by adding electrons, and by adding if necessary, multiply each half reaction's coefficients by a smallest possible integers to yield equal number of electrons in each. So why we then in this step what we do, we make number of electrons equals in both the half reactions. Why we need to make this number of electrons equal in both the half reactions? Because as I explained last time, we know that the number of electrons lost would be equal to number of electrons gained. So that to make that, because electrons will not go into solutions, usually it doesn't happen. And some exceptions are there, like alkali metals. So usually electrons do not have a separate or independent existence. So once electron, if some species is losing its electrons, some other species must be there to accept it. And so the number of electrons lost should always be equal to the number of electrons gained. And that we do, why we do that, to make that thing balanced. As I said, to make that thing balanced, we make the number of electrons equal by multiplying certain coefficients to both the reactions if required, or by adding multiplying it to one reaction, or if not required at all, we don't multiply anything with any reaction with any number. But if necessary, that is why if necessary, we multiply both the reactions by certain numbers, and that we decide based on the logical analysis, and we multiply those things. And this thing is not difficult. You might have balanced this kind of have done this thing in solving equations in your algebra, sorry, mathematics. Yes. So add the balanced half reactions together. Then the next step, the two reactions that we obtained, we add them together and simplify by removing species that appear on both sides of the reaction. However, as I said, this step number 5 for basic reactions, the reactions which are happening in basic solutions, we do something else. We don't add H plus ions. Why? Because we know in acidic solution H plus ions are in excess, while in basic solutions OH minus ions are in excess. So if OH minus ions are in excess, it means we should not add H plus ions. That is fundamentally wrong. So to make those reactions of hydrogen balance, we add OH minus ions. And to add OH minus ions again in basic solutions, certain rules are devised. What we do, so add OH minus ions to both sides of equation in numbers equal to the number of H plus ions. So, and not even if, so we add H plus ions after this step, we add OH minus ions, the reaction to both hand sides, both right hand side and left hand sides. And sorry, this thing we do H plus ions, you do, I think I have explained it. H plus ions you add it. After adding H plus ions, then we add same number of OH minus ions to the both right hand side and left hand side. And what we know, H plus ions and OH minus ions, if they are together, what we do is in basic solutions, OH minus ions are in excess. There is no, H plus ions are not in excess. And usually ionization of water, ionization constant of water is very small. It's 10 to the power minus 14. So whenever the H plus ion and OH minus ions are in the same side of the reaction, we add both of them together to obtain water molecules, same number of water molecules. So what we combine H plus and OH minus ions to yield water molecules if they are present at one side of equation. These things, these rules we will further understand with certain examples, and then simplify the equation by removing any redundant water molecules. If the both sides are having some water molecules, so that redundant water molecules, what we simplify by adding or subtracting whatever operation we need to do, with that we do to simplify the reaction in terms of number of water molecules. So finally, what we do, we check this and see that both the number of atoms and the total charges are balanced for both the half reactions. Let us see this. Let us take this question, this example. Write a balanced chemical reaction to convert Fe2 plus means ferrous ion to ferric ions by dichromate ions is Cr2O7 2 minus in an acidic medium. So acidic medium, then what we adding OH minus ions, then making other things is not necessary whenever this is given. So reaction is happening in acidic medium. So simply adding H plus ion will work for us. So wherein dichromate ions are reduced to chromium 3 plus ions. So what we, from this question, what we understand, Fe2 plus to Fe3 plus, this could be 1/2. This is the oxidation half, because Fe2 plus to Fe3 plus, this conversion will be called as oxidation, because oxidation number is increasing. And then the other half, that conversion is dichromate, where dichromate, we have seen last time, the chromium is in +6 oxidation state, and that this dichromate is getting converted to chromium 3 plus ion. So chromium 3 plus means oxidation state, oxidation number is 3. So +6 to +3 it is going, it means the reduction is happening to dichromate, chromium of dichromate. Now what we do in the first step, let us go and solve this problem. So what we do in first step, we write unbalanced equation for the reaction in ionic form. And this, so unbalanced reaction in the ionic form, what we write, the reactants are Fe2 plus ion and dichromate ion. Fe2 plus and dichromate ion, both are in aqueous form, both are dissolved in water, and that these are reactants. And then we add what are the products, the Fe2 plus converts into Fe3 plus. So Fe3 plus is one of the product, and then dichromate converts into chromium ion. So the chromium 3 plus is another product. They are also in aqueous medium. They both are also dissolved in water. Now in the next step, we separate the equation into half reactions, and it is not difficult even if you do not know which species getting oxidized or reduced in these simple equations. You may get confused if same species is getting oxidized or reduced in disproportionate reactions. That very few examples are there. Usually what we see here, iron Fe2 plus is getting converted to Fe3 plus. There is some involvement, some of transfer of electrons is involved. So something is happening. This is one reaction half that you can decide, though you may not understand whether it is oxidation half or reduction half. And this is chromium. So chromium, if something is happening to chromium, it will go to this form. So this is another half that you can recognize. However, it is better if you understand whether this is oxidation half and this is reduction half. Even if you do not understand, you can balance such reactions. You can divide this reaction into two halves. So oxidation half, why oxidation half? As I explained, Fe2 plus converts into get Fe3 plus, means +2 oxidation state to +3 oxidation state, means this is oxidation. So this is oxidation half. In the reduction half, the chromium dichromate, oxidation number of oxygen, this oxygen is in oxide form. As I explained earlier, oxygen usually, if it is not associated with fluorine or not bound to any other oxygen atom, it is oxidation state will always be -2. So it is -2. Even it is in compound, when it is in elemental form, it will be 0. So this is in compound, and there is no OO bond, oxygen bond, and there is no fluorine here. So oxidation number of oxygen in this ion, this dichromate ion, will be -2. That is, this is oxide. So -2, and if we know this oxidation state of oxygen, we can find out oxidation state of chromium as well. So 7 into minus 2, which is minus 14 plus 2, oxidation state of 2 chromium, 2 into x should be equal to 2 minus, that is the net charge on this ion. So 2x minus 14 is equal to minus 2, means 2x is equal to 12, so x is equal to plus 6. And the chromium, that we know it is a monoatomic cation, so its oxidation state will be plus 3, that will be equal to the charge on this monoatomic cation, so plus 3, so this is a reduction half. In the third step, what we do, we balance the atoms other than oxygen and hydrogen in each half reactions individually. And if you observe this reaction, if you look into this reaction, there is no atom other than the iron. Only iron atoms are there, and both the atom, one atom is in left hand side and one atom of iron is on the right hand side. Those these are in ionic form. So, but only one atom in left hand side, one atom of iron in the right hand side. So there is no need to balance this oxidation half in terms of number of atoms of iron. However, we need to balance it, the second half, the reduction half, because two chromium atoms are there in the left hand side or the reactant side, and one chromium atom is on the right hand side. And we don't have to bother about oxygen number of oxygens at this step. So what we do, the two chromium atoms here on the left, in the left hand side, so we multiply this right hand side chromium 3 plus ion by 2. So if I multiply this by 2, I can find, we can see that the chromium atoms are also balanced in the reduction half, and iron is already balanced. So we don't make any operation, we don't make any changes on the first half, the oxidation half. In this step, we make certain changes to the reduction half, and that we do, we multiply the right hand side to balance the number of chromium atoms. Now in the fourth step, what we do, we balance number of oxygen atoms, and number of oxygen atoms, to balance number of oxygen atoms, we have to first find out how many atoms are in excess, in which side it is in excess. So in the right hand side there is no oxygen atom, in left hand side oxygen atoms are there, so excess, the oxygen atom is in excess in the left hand side. So how many atoms are there in excess? So 7 atoms of oxygen are here in the left hand side. So 7 atoms of oxygen, to balance it, we have to add 7 water molecules, because each water molecule contains 1 oxygen atom. So to balance oxygen atoms, we need to add 7 water molecules to the right hand side. So this is what we have done. And the first half of the reaction, the oxidation half, we don't make any changes. We don't need to make any changes, because first half, the oxidation half, the Fe2 plus conversion to Fe3 plus, it doesn't have any oxygen. So there is no oxygen on the any side, so there is no need to balance it. It is already balanced in terms of oxygen atoms. So we don't make any changes there. Now the fifth step. In the fifth step, we balance number of hydrogen atoms. And to balance number of hydrogen atoms in acidic solution, we add H plus ions. So to get that how many H plus ions we need to add and to which side we need to add, so we find out the number of where in which side the hydrogen atoms are in excess, and what number it is in excess. So if you look at this reaction here, the first oxidation half, we don't need to make any changes, because both the side there is 0 hydrogen atoms, so it is already balanced in terms of hydrogen atoms. Here in this reaction, if you look at this step, the fourth step, this step, that the hydrogen atoms are, sorry, here I have made, while writing this mistake I have made, just let me correct it. So there should be no 14 H plus here. So this is the fourth step, balancing oxygen atoms. There is no H plus. And now here, when we look at the number of hydrogen atoms, there is no hydrogen atom in the left hand side, but 7 into 2 means 14 hydrogen atoms are present on in the right hand side of the reaction. So the hydrogen atoms are in excess in right hand side. And how many how many atoms are in excess? So 14. So to balance 14 hydrogen atoms, we need to add 14 H plus ions to the left hand side. So if you add 14 H plus ions to the left hand side, what we see now, the hydrogen atoms are also balanced. So the chromium, number of chromium atoms we have balanced. We have also balanced number of oxygen atoms. We have also balanced number of hydrogen atoms. In both the reactions, oxidation half and reduction half. Oxidation half, we don't need to make any changes till now because it was already balanced in terms of all those things that we have seen till now. Now, in the sixth step, we balance the number of charge. And to balance the number of charge, let us first calculate the net charge on the right hand side and net charge on the left hand side of the reaction. Net charge on the right hand side of the reaction, if we calculate for the first reaction, it is Fe2 plus, like this, the oxidation half, it is Fe2 plus and this one is Fe3 plus. Means there is one extra positive charge. This is 3 plus charge and this is 2 plus charge. So to make them balance, as I explained earlier, we add number of electrons here. So how many electrons we need to add? So we need to add one electron and we need to add that electron to the right hand side of the equation. And first equation. So if suppose I add one electron here on the right hand side, so what will I get? The total number of charge, 3 plus charge and one electron which is negatively charged. So negatively charged. So net charge on the right hand side will be equal to 2 plus and the net charge on left hand side is also 2 plus. So what we need to do here, we need to add one electron to the right hand side of the oxidation half reaction, the first half reaction. So this is what we do here. So we add one electron to the right hand side of this equation. And now to balance this one, so this one we need to calculate again how number of the net charge on the right hand side and the left hand side. So let us calculate here. For the right hand side, 2 into 3 plus for one chromium, there is 6 plus charge, plus 6 charge is there on the right hand side. And in the left hand side, when we look at what we see, 14 H plus ions are there. 14 H plus means plus 14 charge plus one dichromate ion which is having minus 2 charge on it. So 14 plus means plus 14 minus 2. So net charge, 12 plus charge is there on the left hand side. So what we do, 12 plus on the left hand side, 6 plus on the right hand side to make the net charge balance. And since we are adding electrons, so what we do, we add electrons on the left hand side because positive charge is in excess in the left hand side. So positive charge is in excess in the left hand side and that excess is in the 6, 12, net charge 12 on the left hand side and plus 6 on the right hand side. So 12 minus 6, this is the difference is 6. So we need to add 6 electrons to the left hand side. So that is what we do here. We add 6 electrons in the left hand side. In the next step, in the step 7, what we do, we balance the number of electrons lost and number of electrons gained. Here the electron is lost in this reaction. That is why the electron is added to the right hand side. In this reaction, what we see, electron is gained. The reactant is gaining certain electrons to form this product. So to make the number of electrons lost equals to number of electrons gained, we need to multiply this reaction with 6. Once we multiply this reaction with 6, the first half, the oxidation half reaction with 6, what we do, 6 into 6, this electron, so 6 electrons will be there on the right hand side. That will be the gain number of electrons that is lost will be equal to 6 and the gain is anyway in the next reaction is 6 here. So then what it means, we have to multiply first reaction with number 6, both the sides. We don't need to make any changes on the second half because this is a simple multiplication ratio, 1:6. So we have just multiplied this first half reactions, the oxidation half with the coefficient 6. So 6 Fe2 plus now it has become equals to 6 Fe3 plus 6 electrons. And we don't need to make any changes on the second half, the reduction half of the reaction. Now in the next step, in the eighth step, we add these two reactions, this one and this one that we have obtained at the seventh step. So this and this we add, and how once we add, what will we get? 6 Fe2 plus Cr2O72 minus dichromate ion plus 14H plus 6 electron it will give Fe3 plus 6 electrons. This here, this one we will add plus 6 electrons, 6 Fe3 plus 6 electrons plus 2 Cr3 plus equals plus 7H2. Now what we see, the 6 electrons will be on the right hand side. If you do that operation, you will see very clearly. So 6 electrons will be on the right hand side in the last reaction, the combined reaction, and 6 electrons will be on the left hand side. So these 6 electrons, they are common, so we'll cancel them out, and after cancelling them out, what we get, this reaction that we will obtain. So what we, this is what the 6 Fe2 plus dichromate ion plus 14H plus gives 6 Fe3 plus 2 Cr3 plus 7 water molecules. This is what we obtain. And once now here we verify that equation contains same type and number of atoms and same charge on both sides of the equation. And this is what we do. We have checked it. Let us check again. Six iron atoms are there on the right hand side as well. 2 chromium atoms on the left hand side, 2 chromium on the right hand side. Oxygen atom, 7 oxygen on the left hand side, 7 oxygen on the right hand side. 14H plus on the left hand side, means 14 hydrogen on the left hand side, 14 7 into 14 hydrogen on the right hand side. Now let us check the number of net charge on the both sides of the reactions. The net charge, let us calculate 6 into plus 2, so it is 12 plus charge. So 12 plus charge plus 2 minus charge is here. So the 2 minus charge means 10 plus charge plus 14. 10 plus 14 means 24. Net charge on the left hand side is plus 14. And right hand side, let us calculate 6 into 3 plus, means 6 into 3 means 18, and plus 2 into 3, 6. So 18 plus 6 is 24. So net charge on right hand side is also plus 24, and net charge on the left hand side is also plus 24. So the net charge is also balanced. So what we find out is the net, this equation is, this redox reaction is now balanced, and this is our answer. Let us look at this another example in the basic medium. So how we do balancing in the basic medium. So the question is the permanganate ion. The chemical formula is MnO4 minus, and this 7 that is given in the bracket in the Roman numerals. This represents the oxidation number of manganese in a stock notation that we have seen earlier. So in a basic solution, basic solution, the medium of this reaction is already provided. This basic solution means OH minus ions are in excess. In the previous examples, H plus ions were in excess. Here, OH minus ions are in excess in this reaction, and this permanganate, it oxidizes iodide, this iodide ion, to produce molecular iodine. So iodine is produced after oxidation of iodide, and during the course of this reaction, this permanganate ion gets converted into manganese oxide. And manganese oxide, here again, this metal, this transition metal, 3D metal manganese, is in a +4 oxidation state, and this +4, that is why it is shown here in Roman numerals in a stock notation. And then what we have to do, write a balanced ionic equation. So anyway, this we know. So first, what we do in the first step, we write this equation, the unbalanced equation, in the ionic form. So unbalanced in the reaction in the ionic form, we write permanganate reacts with iodide, and to give manganese dioxide plus iodine. And here we know iodine is converted into, iodide is converted into iodine. So iodide oxidation number of iodine is -1, and in iodine it is elemental iodine, the oxidation number is 0. So -1 to 0, this conversion is the oxidation, because the oxidation number is decreasing. -1 is a smaller number than 0. So oxidation number has decreased, so iodine is oxidizing. So we find oxidation half as iodide to iodine. This is the oxidation half. Then we will find out, we have to recognize the reduction half as well. And here we know manganese is anyway, it is given in 7 oxidation number is given. Even if you do not know this one is not given, you can find out oxidation number of manganese. And then this MnO2, the oxidation number is +4 given here for MnO2, and the manganese 4. So oxidation number is given, so it is reduced because +7 to +4 conversion is here, means this there is a reduction for this. The reduction half you also know, and here in this case what you can see, the oxygen is oxide again. Here there is no O bond, there is no OF bond, so it is the oxidation number of oxygen is -2 is oxide, and -2 into 4 -8 plus oxidation number of manganese. Let us see, let's consider it as X. So X minus 8 will be equal to -1, that is net charge on this magnet. So that will be equal to X will be equal to -1 plus 8, so X is +7. In MnO2 it is very simple for us. Oxygen oxide -2 into 2 -4 and -4, and then the oxidation number of manganese. That -4 must be balanced by the oxidation number of, or the charge of the manganese, that is +4 here. So -4, that will be balanced by only -4 and +4. So that means the oxidation number of manganese is +4. Now what we do in the third step, we balance each half reactions in terms of atoms other than oxygen and hydrogen. So what we do with this reaction, if you look at the second half reaction, the number of manganese atom on the left hand side and right hand side, it is same, it is 1, and oxygen we don't have to bother here in this step. But in the case of, if you look at the iodine, it's a 1 iodine atom is on the left hand side and 2 iodine atoms are on the right hand side, it is I2. So we need to multiply this iodide, this I minus with 2. So this is what we do. So to balance iodine atoms in oxidation half reaction, we write it as like 2 I minus equals gives I2, and I2 iodine is solid, we know, so that let us not worry about this. And the second half, the reduction half is already balanced in terms of manganese atom, and oxygen atom is not balanced, so that we will balance in this state. So to balance oxygen atoms in the reduction half, we add 2 water molecules on the right hand side. Why do we add 2 water molecules? If you look at this reaction, there is 4 oxygen atoms on the left hand side and 2 oxygen atoms are on the right hand side. So what is the excess? Oxygen atoms are in excess in the left hand side, and what is the excess? The excess number is 2. So 2 atoms are in excess in the left hand side. So we add, to balance that, we need to add 2 water molecules, because each water molecule contains 1 oxygen atom. So MnO4 minus, in this step, MnO4 minus, we add MnO2 plus 2 water molecules we add to balance oxygen atom. In the first half, the oxidation half, means this half we don't need to make any changes. Why? Because there is no excess oxygen in any side of the equation. So oxygen atoms are already balanced, 0 oxygen on the both hand side, so it is already balanced, so we don't need to add any water molecule. No extra effort is needed to balance oxygen atoms here for first half. The second half we have balanced in terms of number of oxygen atoms. So 4 oxygen atoms here in the left hand side, and 4 oxygen 2 here, and 2 from 2 water molecules, 4 oxygen atoms. Now oxygen atoms are balanced. Now to balance hydrogen atoms, what we do, as we have seen earlier, so to add, we will add H plus ions, and that number of H plus ions would be equal to the number of atoms that are excess on certain side. So H plus ions, hydrogen atoms are in 4 hydrogen atoms are on the right hand side, and no hydrogen atom on the left hand side. So 4 hydrogen atoms are in excess in the right hand side of the second half. So we need to add 4 H plus ions to the left hand side, and so 4 H plus ions we have added here to the left hand side of the second half reactions. Again, here in the first half we don't need to make any changes, because this reaction is already balanced in terms of number of hydrogen atoms, 0 hydrogen atoms on the both sides of the equation. Now we have balanced this equation in terms of H plus hydrogen atoms as well. 4 hydrogen atoms are on the both hand side. But since we, as I said earlier, for a basic, if the reaction is happening in basic medium, we need to make certain extra things. We need to make more effort, certain more, and that we do. Why we need to do that? Because H plus ions would not be in excess in an equation if the reaction is happening in the basic medium. Because why? Because we know that in the basic medium OH minus ions are in excess, and here in this equation we are showing H plus ions are in excess in this at this step. though these things are balanced. So to make that thing correct, we make certain changes, and as the reaction taking place in basic solution, therefore 4H plus ions we add for 4H4 plus H plus ions. As I said, what is the excess H plus ions? The H plus ions are there, 4H plus ions, and to the same number we add OH minus ions to the both side of equation. So 4H plus ions are there on the left hand side, so we add 4OH plus 4OH minus ions to the both sides of equations, and both sides of this equation we add 4OH minus ions, so 4OH minus ions here as well, and 4OH minus ions here as well. But in this reaction, the first half we don't need to make any changes, because again there is no H plus ions in this first half. So this will still be carried out to here in the same form. Now replacing H plus ions here, but we know the H plus 4H plus ions and 4H minus ions are there, and we know usually in the basic medium if H plus ions and OH minus ions are there, they will immediately combine to form water molecules, and immediately combine to form water molecule means 4H plus ions and 4OH minus ions, they will combine to form 4 water molecules, and the 4 water molecules here are here, and 2 water molecules are on the right hand side. So 4 water molecules, then we also simplify this in terms of what number of water molecules. So 4 water molecules on the left hand side and 2 water molecules on the right hand side. It means if we cancel out water molecules, or deduct number of 2 water molecules from both the sides of reaction. So if we do minus 2 water molecules to both sides, what we see, the 2 water molecules will be there on the left hand side, and there will be no water molecules on the right hand side. So it will be 0. So this is a simple thing that you do. 4 water molecules here, 2 water molecules here, the 2 net water molecules will be here if I cancel out this water molecules. So what we get after simplifying this equation in terms of number of water molecules, so MnO4 minus plus this thing we have already converted to water molecules and simplified it. So 2 water molecules are in excess, plus MnO2, the right hand side thing, and 2 water molecules that has gone in making the simplifying number of water molecules, and then 4 OH minus ions are here. So 4 OH minus ions are now here. This equation is carried out, this carry forwarded to here. This is carry forwarded. Now the balance that we balance the charges of 2 half reactions. To balance the charges of both the half reactions, what we need to do, the 2I minus gives I2 iodine molecule or iodine solid. It means 2, there is a net charge, 2 minus charge on the left hand side and 0 charge on the right hand side. To balance this reaction, we need to add electrons, because we balance the net charge here by adding electrons only. So we need to add 2 electrons on the right hand side. So this is what we do here. So 2I minus equals, it gives I2 plus 2 electrons. So 2 electrons see here. So 2 net charge on the right hand side is minus 2, and minus 2 charge, net charge is there on the left hand side as well. So this equation, the first half is balanced in terms of net charge as well. Now the second half, to balance the second half in terms of net charges, let us first calculate the net charge. A net charge here, there is minus 1 charge on the left hand side, and in this case what we see, 4 OH minus, so 4 minus charge on the right hand side, 1 minus 1 charge left hand side net charge, minus 4 net charge on the right hand side. So to balance it, we need to add 3 electrons to the left hand side. So if I add 3 electrons to the left hand side, what I get, 1 minus 1 and 3 electrons, 3 minus, so minus 1 and minus 4, minus 3, minus 4 charge, and here it is 4 minus 4 charge is there on the right hand side. So now both the reactions are balanced in terms of charges. In the 7th step, as we did for the previous example, here we also do, and this is the common thing that we need to do, that to make the number of electrons lost and number of electrons gained in the 2 half reactions equal. So these 2 electrons are lost in this reaction, and 3 electrons are gained. Means the number of electrons lost is not equal to number of electrons gained here. So what we do, if I multiply this first equation with 3, this is a simple logical analysis. Multiply with 3, so what I obtain, total electrons 3 into 2, 6 electrons, And if I multiply this equation with 2, so the entire equation if I multiply with 2, so 2 into this will be into 3, this will also be 6. So 6 electrons will be there in both the reactions. Electrons are gained in the second half, electrons are lost in the first half. So the number of electrons lost will be equal to number of electrons gained, and that is what we do. So we multiply this first equation with 2, sorry, with 3, the coefficient 3, and the second equation with coefficient 2. So after multiplying, what we do, we multiply this first equation with 3. So 3 into 2, 6i minus, plus I2, 3i2, plus 3 into 2, 6 electrons. This is what we obtain. And now for the second half, we multiply second half with 2 as we have analyzed. So 2 MnO4 minus plus 4 water, or 4 water, because 2 water molecules were already there, 2 into 2. So 2 into 2, 4 water molecules, plus 2 into 3. So that coefficient 2 into 3, 3 electrons, which is 6, gives 2 MnO4, because 1 MnO4, sorry, 1 MnO2 was there. So 1 into 2, 2 MnO2, plus 4 OH minus, we multiply it with 2. So 4 into 2, 8 OH minus ions are there. Now the total number of electrons are also, means the electrons lost is equal to electrons gained during two half this reaction. So now we can add these two reactions by adding up what we know. By the 6 electrons are here, 6 electrons are there on the right hand side, left hand side. If you add, we add left hand side, keep all the left hand side part to one side and right hand part to the right hand side part to the other side, and there if you do to this equation, 6 electrons are there in the left and right hand side both. So 6 electrons we cancel out to find a simplified equation, and this is what 6i minus 2 MnO4 minus plus 4 water molecules gives this iodine plus magnesium dioxide plus OH minus hydroxyl ions, and then their number coefficients are now given here. Here now again we verify whether this reaction is balanced in terms of charge, in terms of uh, number of electrons lost or gained, in terms of number of atoms that are present on the left hand side and to the right hand side. So these things we do. The number of electrons lost or gained, that we have already, those all the things that we have taken care of, we have already balanced. If you want to check, you can check it. 6 iodine here, 6 iodine here, 2 Mn, 2 Mn, 4 into 2, 8 plus 4, 12 water molecules. So 2 into 2, 4 plus 8, sorry, oxygen atoms, and 4 plus 8, 12 oxygen atoms. Hydrogen atoms are also similarly balanced. Charges and lost, electrons lost and electrons gained, everything is balanced. You can check here. So this reaction, this equation is now balanced. So this is what the procedure, and this is how we apply those rules to balance a chemical equation by applying this half reaction method. Now let us look into the other concepts that we need to understand. This is the redox reactions as a basis for titration. So why we need to do titration? One thing is, when you do certain chemicals, as I am saying, this chemical transformation is happening. This this set of reactants or reagents are reacting to form this product. So how will you understand whether this reaction has happened or not? To understand, one thing is you characterize the product, because you cannot see the number of molecules that are formed and number of molecules, a structure of molecules that were there in the reactant. So since you cannot visualize through your eyes, and not even forget about your naked eyes, you cannot visualize them through even the best microscope that we have right now. So these things are not possible. Atoms and molecules are quantum particles. They are so tiny that you cannot imagine seeing them. So other techniques that we do, the techniques that is the spectroscopy techniques that we use to characterize them in laboratories, but that is advanced thing for a school students. So what we do, certain reactions we perform, and those reactions, whether these reactions are performed or not, we understand them in terms of color changes. And this color changes that we call the titration. We do titration, and this titration, most famous that is done in schools, is the acid base titration, and that we do to find out the strength of what solution with respect to the strength of known solution, another known solution. So suppose one unknown solution of an acid is given, and if someone says me to find out the strength or the concentration of the acid, into that solution. So what would I do? I would take a known amount of base, and with the known amount of base, I dissolve it to make a solution. Certain and solution, we know if how much water as a solvent I have added. So the volume of solution, if I know, with the volume of solution I can find out the concentration, and then based on the concentration, what will be the based on the reaction, how much volume of this base is consumed in neutralizing that acid. So this neutralization reaction is performed, and thus based on this, because at the neutral point, at the equivalence point that we call, when the acid number of equivalents of acid and bases are equal, so what we see at that time, making this things balance, we find out the strength of the acid that is unknown. What is that procedure, how exactly that we do, that we will see later on. It's not that we are not going to see here, and there is a separate chapter for that we'll see in great details. Here the similar thing, the titration that we also do for redox reaction. So certain redox changes, whether it happened or not, we understand in schools and laboratories in many forms, is the color change. And that color change, usually some of the reagents, they themselves are colored. So whether this if they get converted into the other form, the intense color change happens with a very minor change in their concentration at the endpoint. So that is what that we use one point. But what we see, some reagents do not undergo color change, or even if the color change happens, the color change is not that intense, that not sudden. So to make the color change that appear to us, you need to add much extra amount of that reagent. So that extra amount, it will mislead your calculations. So you won't get the exact amount. So what we do in laboratories while performing a titration, we predict a chemical transformation in the form of color change. In acid-base titrations, we use pH-sensitive indicators. So in when the acid-base titration, we need to use indicators usually, because acid and base solutions are usually mostly colorless. So we add certain indicators, and those indicators, their color depends on the pH. So if you change the pH, and we know whether the reaction, the pH of solution depends on the H plus ion and OH minus ion concentration in the solution. And with the H plus ion concentration, if it is changing, it means the pH is changing. And based on that concentration, H plus ion concentration, what we see, certain chemicals, they change their chemical form. And once they change their chemical form in different chemical forms, they show different color. And because they show different colors in different chemical form, different ionic form, so based on that color change, we recognize that this color change has happened. It means now the pH has changed from this to this. And so those are the pH sensitive indicators that we use. But in redox systems, the titration method adopted to determine the strength of reductants or oxidants employ a redox sensitive indicator. The redox sensitive indicator means the indicators which changes their color by because of the change in oxidation number. And because of the change in oxidation number, and that change in oxidation number should also be very the change and lasting, because if it happens, if color change happens for suppose a moment, you may observe, you may not observe. So it must be everlasting or lasting, and the change, it will should be very intense, and the very small excess of that oxidation number should give us that very intense color, so that we can visualize it. And that in the example, in the case of magnet ion, when we see, so some reagents themselves, sorry, not magnet, for magnet ion, the magnet ion is MnO4 2 minus at that and this is per magnet KMnO4. This is K2MnO4 is magnet, so potassium magnet is per magnet, KMnO4 per magnet. So some reagents, what we see in the redox changes, some redox reagents, like for example per magnet ion, themselves are intensely colored. So it has very intense pink color per magnet ion, that you might have seen. So they act as self-indicator. So if suppose in the during the chemical transformation, permanganate ion, which is pink in color, and it is totally consumed. If it is totally consumed, as soon as it is totally consumed, you will see the color, the pink color will disappear. Because with the very small concentration, the color change, it makes the color of the solution that is observable to us. And if the slightly excess of MnO4 ion is there in somewhere in a very small concentration, you can see the color which was of the solution which was colorless initially, and now because of the excess of permanganate ion, it has become pink in color. So the visible end point of this, in this case, in the case of permanganate ion, achieved after the last of the reductant. And what are the reductants? Because this is reduced, so something which reduces it is reductant. So this Fe2 plus ferrous ion, which will be oxidized to ferric, and even C2O5 4 minus, this is oxalate. Oxalate will be oxidized to carbon dioxide and other things. So and this, so this will reduce permanganate ion. So the permanganate ion, the color of permanganate ion appears at concentration as low as 10 to the power minus 6 molar. 10 to the power minus 6 molar means mole per liter, that you know, or mole per decimeter cube. So even if this small concentration, if it is in permanganate ion in excess 10 to the power minus 6, it is a very small number, that you know, very dilute solution, extremely diluted solution. And even if that dilution, you can see the change in color. So if you, this much excess the permanganate ion is there, so you can observe this color fluid. So this ensures minimal overshoot in color beyond the equivalence point. And if suppose this concentration is certain reagents you add, and it shows some intense color which is observable to us at suppose 0.011 molar concentration. So 0.011 molar concentration is not that a small amount, and that much extra or excess of that reagent you have added during the chemical transformation. And if you take that amount into the calculation to find out what was the amount of the oxidant, so it will lead to some wrong result, because excess of that reagent you have taken into the consideration. But this much amount, if you take in excess, it won't affect the calculation. It will be at the third, fourth place of decimal, the change, and so it is almost as exact as if there is no you MnO4 minus ion in excess. The point where the, so but we see the color of permanganate appears at concentration as low as 10 to the power minus 6. This ensures a minimal overshoot in color beyond the equivalence point. Equivalence point, as I said, equivalence point, you should understand number of equivalents, these are terms, number of equivalents of both the reactants are same. This is very important concept. This is similar to something that we analyze in things in terms of number of moles, but the number of equivalents is more fundamental to chemistry. And what are the what is the number of moles? The number of equivalents, I have said the equivalent weight and those things initially in the first lecture of no, not here. Sorry, I have explained it in the solution when I taught solution. So again, we'll see the what is the equivalence, number of equivalent or the equivalence point. We'll see in details when we will study volumetric analysis. Here, just to mention, because these concepts are there, these chapters are, these topics are overlapped here in both two chapters. So I just wanted to mention it here. The point where, so what is the equivalence point? Let us see the equivalence point where the reductants and oxidants are equal in terms of their moles stoichiometry. And moles stoichiometry means if they are equal in number, moles stoichiometry, you know what is the balanced chemical reaction. In the balanced chemical reactions, if their number of moles are in that according to the stoichiometry in that entire reaction vessel or entire solution. So suppose in the case of, if we look at this example, the balanced equation here, the 6I minus MnO4 are this kind of means iodide is reacting with MnO4 minus permanganate ion. So means if 6I minus 6 moles of iodide is there per 2 mole of permanganate ion, it means the reaction is now at the equivalence point. Means 6 moles of iodide is present, and at that time, if also the 2 moles of permanganate ions are there in the solution. And that will, while you are doing this reaction one by step by step, if you are in the titration, what we do, we add one reagent drop by drop or step by step. That is what we do. Slowly add another reagent. So you will find initially, suppose if you are adding, you are doing some certain titration of iodide, and if you are adding a MnO4 ion from the burette, and if you do that, and certain amount of iodide solution that you have taken, certain volume from the pipette that you measure, and you take it in the volumetric flask, and then you add this keep adding permanganate ion. So initially permanganate ion was not in the stoichiometric amount, it was not balanced. So as soon as you add permanganate ion, shake the solution, it is involved, it completely consumed in the chemical transformation that gives this product. However, as soon as you add 2 moles per 6 moles, this 3:2 ratio. So this 3:2 ratio, it should be there with respect to iodide ions. How many iodide ions are there in the solution? It will also depend on what volume of the solution you have taken and what is the concentration of that solution. So based on that solution, whatever the per 6 iodide ions, that's what I said. If 2 permanganate ions are added per 6 minus ions, so what we see that situation is the equivalence point. As soon as you add next drop to this solution, what it does it mean? Now you have added permanganate ions in excess, because all the iodide ions that were there, they are already consumed by the permanganate ions at the by the equivalence point is achieved. And after the equivalence point, as soon as you add one drop, what you see, permanganate ions are in excess. And once the permanganate ions are in excess, even in 10 to the power minus 6 molar concentration, you will see a very intense pink color. And this says that now you have already achieved the equivalence point, your reaction is complete. So now at this point, you stop and do the calculations to find out the concentration of iodide solution. And this is what the equivalence point means. And again, that what we see other in other cases, like in a permanganate, all the reagents are not like permanganate, they do not show intense color change. So if there is no dramatic auto color change, auto color is the self color change as like permanganate ion, we use indicators which are oxidized immediately after the last bit of reactant is consumed. So in such cases, we add certain indicators. Indicators, again, it indicates that certain chemical change has already happened, and this it indicates based on the change in the color. And you also see the electrical indicators that is there on the switchboard. It shows us if, that whether the light is there or not, or in the even on the stabilizers. So it also based on the color, what is the that is there of the indicator, you will find out what is the voltage range, and based on that voltage you can find out voltage range, even if you do not know exactly what is the voltage. Some stabilizers also give you the exact voltage that is there for the supply, but even if the color based on the uh, voltage range, it shows the certain color, and that is what the indicator means. So based on the color change, again here in the chemical transformation, certain reagents that we add, though this reagent is not the primary reactant, it is not primary reactant. Initially, whatever the reagent that you are adding from the burette, it reacts with the primary reactant, and the primary reactant, unless that primary reactant is there, that something that you are adding from the burette, it will react with only that reagent. Once that is completely consumed, like in the case of MnO4 that we have seen, once the MnO4 consumed iodide, so MnO4, in the case of MnO4, we don't take any indicator. But if suppose dichromate ions are there, dichromate ion is not a self indicator, is not a auto indicator. So we, as soon as this dichromate is there in the excess, it added in excess, and the previous reactant that is already consumed. So now dichromate will react with the indicator, and now as with a very slight addition of dichromate, it oxidizes the indicator, and the indicator will show certain uh, color. And that indicator that we use usually with the dichromate is diphenylamine. So if there is no dramatic auto color change, if we use indicators which are oxidized immediately after the last bit of reactant is consumed, producing a sudden color change. For example, in the case of dichromate ion, which is not a self indicator but oxidizes as the indicator, diphenylamine, there are also some other indicators that we use with the dichromate just after the equivalence point to produce an intense blue color. So just after the equivalence point is reached, so excess dichromate that is added, it will react with diphenylamine, and it oxidizes that diphenylamine, and based on that we see the intense blue color, signaling the end point. At this point, when we see the color, is called the end point. End point, the equivalence point is just the previous point before the end point. So there is yet another method which is quite common. However, it is used, and most its use is restricted to those reagents which can oxidize iodide. So oxidize or reduce iodide. What we know, the iodine, the case of iodine, one peculiar of the property of iodine is when iodine is there, if you put iodine in a starch, you see a blue color solution, it becomes blue color. Why it is that? Means iodine, if it is mixed with the starch, we see an intense blue color, and this blue color, it means that the iodine, the molecular iodine is there with the in the starch. So blue color with the stars appears, it means that the excess iodine molecule is added to that starch solution, and this is why it is so starch. But we know this, you might, I do not know whether you know or not. I'll explain it briefly. A starch is a polymer of alpha D glucose. What is alpha D glucose? If necessary, we will see later, and you might have, some of you might have read this. Alpha D glucose is there. You polymerize it, both of polymerize it, you find a starch. So there are two basic structures of a starch. One is called amylose, another is called amylopectin. Amylose structure is a simple linear chain of alpha D glucose. The glucose that we know, the glucose alpha D glucose, simple linear chain is called amylose. It usually is found in the helical form, and iodine go and sits within the helix, and it sits within the helix, it forms a complex, and there with the presence of light what we see, some electron transfer happens, and because of this electron transfer we see certain color change, that the blue color of that starch iodine solution. However, there is another structure that is amylopectin. Amylopectin is not a simple linear chain. It also has branching, certain branching. And another form that we see starch is a food reservoir for plants. Plants reserve food for their survival in the form of a starch. Animals usually do this in the form of glycogen. Glycogen is also a polymer of alpha D glucose, though it is a more dense polymer like the, and this is a branched polymer like a myelopectin, but this branching is more dense in glycogen that usually forms in animal body, and animal body it is stored, it is, this conversion happens usually in liver, and this is what the glucogen we restore for the further use, and that is what sometimes we don't get food, the starvation, other things, those now that this glycogen gets converted, it hydrolyzes into the glucose, and that then we get the energy. So that is why we can starve for certain period without, otherwise if there is no source of glucose we cannot survive in for 1 hour, but something glucose is already there somewhere or other energy sources, so we can survive when during the starvation for some days at least. So what we should, what we do, what we see, this method, the iodine, since it gives intense color in presence of a starch. So if certain reaction, if you choose in that reaction, iodide is there, and if that reaction iodide gets converted into the iodine, and then that iodine in that solution, if you already add, you have already added a starch. So as soon as the iodine is formed, what you see, the color becomes blue, and that color of the solution becomes blue, it means that the reaction has already happened, or the iodide is getting converted into the has already got converted into the iodine. So this example of the reagents are like copper, even Fe3 plus also, Fe2 plus, sorry, Fe3 plus, Fe3 plus, because iodine is being oxidized. So we need something which can be reduced. So copper 2 plus is the oxidation state, most stable oxidation state of copper is cupric. So copper cupric can get converted to Q plus 1 oxidation state, and it will be reduced, so it can oxidize iodine. So similarly, iron 3 plus, Fe3 plus, ferric will get converted to ferrous. So such reagents, when we add in presence of iodine, what we form, this is the cuprous iodide, this is the cuprous, cupric, and cupric plus iodide, but iodide, we find cuprous iodide, Cu2I2, is a solid plus iodine. Iodine, usually iodine is not found in the aqueous. We have shown here why, because iodine is solid, so it will settle very easily. But if you add the Ki is there, means iodine is there. If something iodine is there in the excess, but this iodine, it reacts with iodide, and it reacts with iodide to form triiodide ion. This is Ki3 that exists here, that we know. So Ki. So this method relies on the facts that iodine itself gives an intense blue color with a starch, and has a very specific reaction with thiosulfate ion. So thiosulfate ion, once the blue color is there and you add thiosulfate ion, this intense blue color will disappear as soon as the iodine is converted into the iodide, and so iodide, this thiosulfate gets converted into this tetrathionate, and so we see this color change. So on adding a starch after the liberation of iodine, so once the iodine is liberated from the reaction of copper 2 plus ion on iodide ions, an intense blue color appear for first reaction, and the second reaction is the thiosulfate. What we see, the color disappears as soon as iodine is consumed by the thiosulfate ions. Thus the endpoint can easily be tracked here in this case whether the iodine is there in excess or not in excess. So limitation, now the limitation of concepts of oxidation number that we also see, and though this is not an important point, but it's something it helps us to understand some chemistry at least. So the concept of redox processes is still evolving. It is not that it has stagnant, that all the concepts are not all known to us. So with the understanding of chemistry as it is evolving, as our understanding of chemistry is improving, we also are finding or evolving the concept of oxidation and reduction is also evolving. So recently the oxidation and reduction have been redefined in terms of electron density fluctuations around an atom involved in the reaction. So what we see in even certain type of reactions, we see the one thing is you find out whether the electron transfer is happening or not, or that assumptions that you make that if certain electronegative atom is there bound to certain atom, so electron we think that it gets converted totally transferred to that more electronegative atom. But this is what that we doesn't happen usually in the chemistry if the compound is covalent. If there is no ionic compound that is involved in that redox changes. So even if there is some covalent bonds that is involved there, so covalent bond there is no complete transfer of electrons that happens. What we see usually see the shifting of electron density, that is the polarization of electron density, and based on the polarization of electron density, that is now the more advanced concept. Now people have defined oxidation and reduction, and oxidation is what? Oxidation we have seen in the terms of decrease in number of electrons, and if the number of electrons is decreasing, if you understand, the electron density will also be decreased around that atom. So what we see, that usually we see decrease in electron density around an atom. If you observe during a chemical transformation, you can say this atom has undergone oxidation, and the electron density is increased, whether it has increased because of the addition of extra electron, the complete transfer of electron, that the case of ionic reactions, or it has just because of the slight polarization of electron density towards that atom because of the certain changes. And even if that you observe, so what you say, this means this chemical, this particular species, this particular atom, because its electron density has increased during the transformation, so it has undergone reduction. And this is what the modern concept of modern definition of oxidation and reduction. Although this may not be right now understandable to you, may not visualize how the electron density must be changing during the chemical reactions. That is one thing you can visualize, you can imagine, that is not difficult, but it is much easier for us to understand and to visualize the oxidation and reduction in terms of change in oxidation numbers. And oxidation number, how it can be found out through methods that I have explained. One, that we know certain rules, set of rules, that is one thing. Another is the, if you know the chemical structure or chemical formula, from the chemical formula you can define out the chemical structure, write the chemical structure, and with the chemical structure having an understanding of electronegativity or order in electronegativity of different atoms, and that we see from the periodic property, you can find out the oxidation number of exact oxidation number of each and every atom, and based on that you can also find out average oxidation number of that particular type of atom. It is more than one in number. So that thing we do. Now that let's see this redox reactions and electrode processes. Redox reaction and electrode processes, usually we study these things in electrochemistry, and something that the titration thing that we study in volumetrics. So simply that I mention this part as well, and I'll finish this chapter. So this zinc and this copper sulfate, once the zinc rod, you add zinc rod to the copper sulfate solution, what you see, the zinc is oxidized and the copper is reduced, and copper reduced means copper gets settled, or if the copper rod is there, copper is like it forms the copper solid is obtained there, so copper settles down there. So that is called electroplating, sometimes used in electroplating, different kind of electroplating that we'll see in the electrochemistry. So the experiment corresponding to reaction can be observed if zinc rod is dipped in copper sulfate solution. And so what you do, if you do add both the chemicals are there in only one pot, what can you do? You can separate this reaction also into two different pots, and this is what we see in the case of this reaction, the Daniell cell. So we take two different reactants, we add zinc rod in zinc sulfate solution. The zinc rod is there in zinc sulfate solution, and the copper rod is there and the copper rod in the copper sulfate solution. And they are two different, we use them in two different beakers, and once we use them into different, put them in two different beakers. And what here copper 2 plus is there, and the copper here, the reaction will not happening immediately. Though the even if the reaction will happen, some CO2 plus will go into solution. The similarly same amount of crystallization, the sedimentation will also happen, and the same amount of copper 2 plus will be formed. That is the equilibrium process. But once you, as the here the ammeter is added, some switch is added. As soon as you add the switch, and these two things that we do, if one switch is added, the ammeter, it will show us the whether the current is now flowing or not. Another thing, we add certain, it's called a salt bridge, and salt bridge is made up of agar, and agar that we get from the algae, and I think red brown algae that you can find out which algae it is from. Though this might be part of biology, so agar it obtains from algae. It is a certain kind of it is one kind of organism, and so that agar there we add certain kind of salts like potassium nitrate or some other salts. And once that potassium nitrate or sodium nitrate, the salts are added here in the salt bridge, and then is switch is there. So let us see if I have. So a salt bridge is a U-tube containing a solution of potassium chloride or ammonium nitrate. Ammonium nitrate and potassium chloride, some other sodium nitrate you can also add, are usually solidified by boiling with agar obtained from red algae, obtained from the red algae, and later cooling by jelly-like substances. So agar is anyway, it's also a jelly-like substance. You add that potassium chloride or ammonium nitrate, and that is called salt bridge. And salt bridge, we add salt bridge, and then once we add this thing, we switch on the switch, what we get, the electron transfer that happens. So electron transfer happens. Why? The zinc it gets oxidizes, it gives certain electrons, and the zinc oxidizes to give Zn plus excess plus electron, and that electron moves here and through this circuit, and it goes here, and during this process, if you have a certain device, or you can see the electron flow, or you can use this current also in certain kind of applications that we use batteries. And this is what how the batteries, electrochemical batteries work. This is one form of electrochemical battery. So now why we add salt bridge? Salt bridge we add to make this reaction, the solution electrically neutral, because as the excess Zn plus is forming, if the excess Zn plus is forming, you are making this reaction, this entire vessel electrically positive, and if it becomes electrically positive, electrons will not flow out of it, because to facilitate that electron flow, we add certain salt bridge by certain salts are added there, and that salt from the salt bridge, that like if the zinc plus is forming, so nitrate ion will flow there into the solution from the salt bridge to keep this reaction neutral. And once this reaction is still neutral, so electron can easily now flow into the circuit. Now another thing that we do here, that this electron will be accepted, it will go here, and that electron now it will come to the solution, and that electron will be accepted by Cu2 plus ion that was in the solution. And so that is what we see, the copper will get deposited to the copper rod, and the copper deposition will be happening. And again here, because of copper deposition, what we see, and if there is extra electron is added, if we don't balance it, so sorry, that copper is getting deposited, so anyway this is a neutral one. So salt bridge, what salt bridge do, it helps react this pot, these beakers to be electrically neutral. If they are electrically neutral, so this electron flow will be facilitated, otherwise it will not be happening so easily. But based on that, what we say, if the concentration of each species that we looked into this, anyway, what I'm saying is just an introduction I am giving. We will see these things in details in electrochemistry. when we'll study different kind of electrochemical cells. So there we also define a standard electrode. So if the concentration of each species taking part in electrode reaction is unity, you know, 1 molar, and if the gas is 1 atmospheric pressure we consider, and the reaction is carried out at 290 Kelvin, this temperature is also 290 Kelvin, that is fixed. Then the electrode potential that we obtain for each electrode is said to be a standard electrode. And what we know to a standard electrode, find out what here we also define half electrodes. Why half electrodes? If suppose I couple this is oxidation is happening, so you can say oxidation, which is anode. Always oxidation happens in anode and reduction happens in cathode in an electrochemical cell. So the anode is there, if this half, the oxidation half, and this oxidation half is coupled with the reduction half, and that is why zinc is oxidized and copper is reduced here. If there is no reduction half, if there is no copper, this zinc oxidation will not happen. Why it will not happen? Because zinc, there is no one that is available to accept electrons from the zinc, and so that is why the oxidation or reduction doesn't happen in isolation, it always happens in, it's a coupled process. So suppose if you don't take this copper solution, there you add hydrogen electrode, and the standard hydrogen electrode that we add, and whatever the electrode potential, the potential difference will be here, as we said, because of the that is why only the electron will be transferred or it will travel here. So that electrode potential that we obtain there, that is called the half cell electrode potential, and that is what the if and a negative E naught means that the redox couple is a stronger reducing agent, and if positive E naught means that is what E naught I have not defined anyway. That will look. I think this is the electrochemical series based on the electrode potential or reduction electrode potential that is defined. This is a reduction electrode potential. It suggests us that if you add two chemicals, which one will be oxidized and which one will be reduced. Then this is what we obtain from this. So suppose if you add F2 with Li plus, it is very easy. Li plus, it will easily be oxidized because its reduction potential is negative. Reduction potential negative means reduction will not happen for this. Our reduction is not that easy for this compound. Anyway, the lithium is its reduction potential is highest. So what we can find out in this table, the no one species in this table will be able to reduce lithium because its reduction potential is highest. Similarly, for fluorine, no one will be able to oxidize because the reduction potential is positive, the oxidation potential will be negative. Reduction potential, oxidation potential are just opposite. The reduction potential is plus 2.87, the oxidation potential will be minus 2.87. Minus 2.87 means the oxidation of fluorine will not happen. So fluorine is what we know because it doesn't accept electrons, the highest electronegative atom. So this is how based on that we analyze these things. And again, simply just I have wanted to mention these terms: electrochemical series, electrode potential, these things. That is why these things are added here. We will see everything in more details in electro. When we will see electrochemistry, everything will be explained. Even the electrochemical series, electrode potential, the Daniell cell, all the kind of electrochemical cells that will see. And in that chapter, we will need the concept of oxidation and reduction. So this oxidation and reduction processes are very important in many, not only in this electrode potential, even understanding some kind of things, you will also need their help. So now I will stop here.